Greetings, denizens of the internet. As a dungeon master, have you ever had this happen? You're playing along in your campaign, everything's going swimmingly. But then all of a sudden something terrible happens. One of your players gets sick.
Oh no.
Or has to stay late for work. Or has to take care of a sick child, or on and on and on. If one of your players can't be there, but all the rest of you want to play Dungeons & Dragons, what do you do? I mean, what if that guy's the healer? How do you play? But more importantly, how do you temporarily write that person out of the story arc and then put them back in such a way that it makes sense? Brian to the rescue. Today I'm going to share with you my top 5 ways where you can write a character out of your story temporarily and then insert them back in, still not leave any giant plot holes in your story. Stay tuned, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be right back. So all your friends want to get together for a game of Dungeons & Dragons, but one of the players has called in sick or has stayed late for work or has some other reason. Life has gotten in the way of having fun, and the rest of you want to play Dungeons & Dragons. So how do you write that character out of your story and put him back in a believable way? You don't want to do something terrible. You could have a magic portal opens and he gets teleported to another dimension, and then hopefully next week the dimensional portal opens and the player comes back. That's a terrible plan. Would you believe that if somebody put that in a novel? Somebody just got teleported out for no reason and then came right back for no reason? No, that just ruins all the believability. Players have to have a suspension of disbelief. They suspend the fact that what we're talking about is make-believe, and we don't want to shatter that suspension of disbelief. So if we can make a good story hook or a good plot twist where we pull our character out temporarily, but make it cool, well, that helps preserve the suspension of disbelief that's necessary for a good Dungeons & Dragons adventure. So I'm going to share with you today my top 5 favorite ways to write a character out and make it seem like it's a part of a believable story. Number 1. This first one is one of my favorites. It helps if you do a wee bit of setup at the beginning. Now, you don't have to do the setup, but if you do, it'll make you seem like a genius dungeon master. Your players are, say, still in the tavern. They look over and they see an old man in a bright blue robe. We're assuming he's a wizard, but this gets confirmed when you see him continually casting Mage Hand and sneaking ales from behind the bartender's back. He's getting completely sauced. Eventually, the wizard works up enough nerve and he slowly saunters over to your table and he begins his pitch. You adventurers look like you have a lot of potential. Is there any chance that I could convince you to do a small quest for an old man? Of course, your players sense a quest coming on. This is inevitable. But we're not going to actually give them that quest. Instead, the wizard says, "But first, a drink." And he chugs back one last ale, falls flat on his back, and passes out on the floor. This is not what your players were expecting. The bartender looks over at your party and says, "Well, you boys lucked out, didn't you?" "What do you mean we lucked out?" "Well, that's Gandaldor. The last time he approached a set of adventurers, he opened up a portal and they all went through and they all died. Just leave him drunk on the floor there. I'll collect him later when we close." They all died? And then never give a party a quest from that wizard. Just move on. Ignore the blue wizard on the floor. Just leave him there. Players will wonder how he figures into the story, but you don't need him yet. He's just a seed that you've planted that you'll use later. So time has gone by, and one of your players has decided not to show up. As the dungeon master, you explain that the wizard in the blue robe showed up, opened a portal, and the only one that went through was your missing player. The wizard went in after him, and the portal closed, and there's your party, one person short. Sure, you cheated, but since you set the plot hook up at the beginning, it makes sense, and the players love it. When your player returns and wants to play again, He simply pops back out of the portal, but now it actually makes sense. He doesn't know what he was doing when he was there. His memory was erased because it was top secret. However, he does feel better. He's still gained some experience points, or he's leveled up with the other players so he doesn't get left behind. And boom, your players think you're a genius. Number 2. I think this next one is pretty cool. It starts with a Basilisk. Now, you can do this with a Medusa as well, but I like the Basilisk a little bit better. Basilisk, Basilisk, You start your session and the players have fought a Basilisk, and one of your party members has been turned to stone. Now, the Basilisk isn't a fast-moving creature, but it doesn't need to be. When he gazes at you, if you fail your Constitution saving throw, you are turned to stone. Actually, I know you have to fail 2 saving throws, but for the sake of the story, we're going to assume that the player who's missing failed them both. What the Basilisk is going to do now is, typically, they will use their massive jaws and they will eat the rock they just turned your player into. And the stomach fluids of the Basilisk turn the player back into flesh so that he can be digested. Have your players all make a nature check. One of them will remember that that's the digestive system and process by which a Basilisk works. And like so many things in nature, the anti-venom is found right near to the venom. So while the player who's away can't actually play with you, he is turned to stone. Meanwhile, the rest of you decide to plumb the depths of that cave and find another Basilisk. The one that you destroyed is useless. You have spilled its contents all over the ground and it is not going to work for you any longer. But you go into the cave, you have a bunch of battle encounters, and you're searching for that one last Basilisk. Can't say that for nothing. When the missing players return, the players who were there and hunted everything in the cave and found the Basilisk will use its stomach contents, harvest the oil out of the creature, coat the player with the Basilisk stomach oil, and perform a nice revivification of the player, bringing them back to life. So, player, what was it like to be dead? I can't remember. Number 3. This next one is quick and easy and can actually play into the existing story that you're building for your players. One of your players, whoever's going to be missing that week, they end up touching or coming into contact with a cursed object. It doesn't matter what. The fighter may come in contact with a cursed sword. The wizard may come in contact with a cursed spellbook. You decide what that cursed object is. The trick is, that player is now driven to madness. The player falls to the ground, just clutching and coveting that cursed object. They can't let it out of their sight. They're just obsessed with it. My precious. One of you notices that there's an inscription on the cursed object. The name is what's important, and you and your party need to hunt down whoever cursed this object and get them to lift the curse. You could use a wizard. I like to use a mad cleric who goes around cursing objects because he likes to torment people. Such is the nature of evil. Your party now goes on a journey to find the mad cleric and see if they can convince him to lift the curse. Depending on how long your player is away, we can change the difficulty level of how hard it is to convince that mad cleric to raise the curse. Another satisfying ending is to just have the players kill the mad cleric, and he can give them one heck of a fight. Got a link down here in the trumpery if you want to see a way to easily change your monster's challenge rating to fit the party's level. I'll see if I can stick it up in the cards too. Then once your players slay the mad cleric, the curse is broken. The cursed player wonders why the epic weapon he thought was a giant sword is actually just a dagger with +3 to paper cuts. And the rest of your party has had a great adventure separate from the one player who was cursed, and now that he's back in the party, everything resumes as normal. Number 4. So these next 2 are story arcs for a player that's going to take a little bit longer leave of absence. Instead of just leaving for 1 or 2 sessions, this player is going to be gone for a number of sessions. You want to temporarily pause this character and bring him back, maybe. But you still want a believable fit if this player is able to return and continue the campaign. As your player's characters travel down the road, for one reason or another, they come across toxic or magical fruit that poisons them, a wee bit of food that will reduce them to 1 hit point and leave them retching on the side of the road, and make it horrible too. feel free to punish this person for leaving you in the lurch and removing one of the characters from your campaign. Make sure they're just throwing up everywhere, chunder on their boots. It's just a nightmare of how awful and sick they are. So, they're down to 1 hit point, and your players haul the sick and retching victim out to a town hospital or to a healer where they are cured, but they're going to have to rest and recuperate for some period of time before they're able to resume adventuring. The nice one about this one is you can leave that player recuperating for as long as possible. They just don't recover from the near-death experience that they had. If you want to be a jerk DM, feel free to permanently lower the strength or constitution of your player. You don't want to do that. But if your player is never able to return and complete the campaign with the rest of your players, that's okay. That's how their story can end. But of course, you can bring them back at any time. Number 5. This last one is also available to be used as a longer-term solution for a missing player. It works if they're gone for 1 session, it works if they're gone for 20 sessions. It's quite simple. They go into a cave and they are trapped in a cave-in or an avalanche, and they're separated from the rest of the party. There's no way they're going to dig through the rock wall that caved in, separating the two of you. At this point, the trapped player has no choice but to find some other way out of the cave system. If the player is never able to return to the campaign, that is their tomb. But if the player is able to return to the campaign, they find another way out of the cave and eventually meet up with the players again. Probably in a tavern. And there you go, 5 cool ways to temporarily write your players out of the script and put them back in again in a believable way. If you've got some other ways that you feel have worked for you in the past, feel free to share those. Leave those down in the trumpery down at the bottom. I'd love to hear back from you and get some feedback. Now, of course, the most important way to level up your character is for you to click the like button down here. Right about, is it there? It's right about there, I think. Click the like button, and then click the subscribe button. If you want more of these videos, also click the bell icon. That'll notify you when new videos come out, and it really helps the channel a whole lot. I really would appreciate it. If you'd like to support the channel, I've got some books for sale down here at the bottom also. I've got links down in the trumpery, and right now that's the best way to support the show. This is Brian Carey reminding you to be a scholar and a barbarian.